The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Mark. After the 5,000 had eaten and were satisfied, Jesus made his disciples get into the boat and precede him to the other side toward Bethsaida, while he dismissed the crowd. And when he had taken leave of them, he went up to the mountain to pray. When it was evening, the boat was far out on the sea, and he was alone on shore. Then he saw that they were tossed about while rowing, for the wind was against them. About the 4th watch of the night, he came toward them, walking on the sea. He meant to pass by them, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out. They had all seen him and were terrified. But at once he spoke with them. "Take courage, it is I. Do not be afraid." He got into the boat with them, and the wind died down. They were completely astounded. They had not understood the incident of the loaves. On the contrary, their hearts were hardened. The Gospel of the Lord. So after the feeding, which happened, it was so wonderful yesterday, So Jesus had to contend with the crowd because, the crowd had, celebrated this. They were, things were good. But he had to withdraw from the crowd. Had to withdraw to pray. But you see, the apostles were being tossed about by this wind. Do we ever have an inkling that Jesus is not aware that they were tossed? No, he knew. He probably hasn't had, the great vision to know this is going to happen. But he was in prayer. So in prayer, he could see what was going on. He could see that they were in trouble. He could see that things were not going okay. He could see in prayer. Prayer was in complete touch with God the Father. Complete touch. Because God is love. Because Jesus is the manifestation of God's love in the world, because Jesus is the complete assembly of God's love. He is God with us, Emmanuel. He sees when we are tossed about. He sees it. He knows it. Some people say, "You mean you have a God and coronavirus? You have God. In my family, I have God, and people in the hospital have God." Yes. He's right there. Look at his apostles. He had already fed so many people. They ate, they had filled, they had extra. And yet, when he was with them, they thought it was a ghost. He said, "Do not be afraid. It is I." In the midst of turbulence, when the wind blows against us, sometimes we lose touch with the reality of the one who is the love of God. Because sometimes we are focusing on the wind. We are focusing on that which is not going all right. So we fail to see the incarnate Son of God. We fail to see Jesus Christ, Emmanuel, that He is with us at that time. When we fail to see what happens, then we lose His touch. We lose Him. He's coming into our boat because He entered into the boat, and what happened? He wants to communicate with us. He wants to get our attention. He's saying you don't need to pay attention on all those things that are around you. No, don't pay attention on them. Focus. Whoever acknowledges that Jesus is the Son of God, God remains in Him and He in God. He abides in us. He remains with us because He is an eternal presence. He is an eternal presence. And today, Jesus continues to be present while by His Father, the right hand side of the Father, present there, interceding for us. And you see, the beauty of how God operates is this. Look, when Jesus was born into the world, don't get it mixed up that Jesus completely abandoned His Father right there. You know, they sit together. But He was incarnate. He was made present to us. And so, after His resurrection, He returned to His place because now He's exalted. He became a priest for us, and a priest intercedes. He becomes a priest, and then He lives with us, living memories of priesthood to continue to intercede with us and for us. And yet, He is the eternal priest who remains by the side of the Father, interceding day and night for humanity. But sometimes it's difficult to understand that. Sometimes we don't process that because we are away. We are thinking of ourselves. We are thinking of our disturbances. We are thinking of the tossing wind. We are thinking of this wind that is blowing against us. Why not turn the gaze? Why not turn the gaze? Turn the gaze to the one who loves you the most. Turn the gaze. If it looks like everybody is against you in a party, you probably have just one person who loves you the most. And you turn the gaze, and you know what? There's a flurry of grace that blows. When we are persecuted, when we are in suffering, when we are in pain, when we are in agony, when we seem to be alone, take the curve and take the gaze away from all those negativities and focus it on Jesus. Once you focus it on Jesus, you see the bridge, the grace begins to flow, and the heart is filled and warmed. When we focus on the wind, boy, oh boy. That is not the reading today, but you know, Peter slept, huh? We just begin to, but Jesus is still there. But we cannot focus on Him. Many of us as Christians, sometimes we say, oh boy, I don't want to get into this province of suffering that comes our way when we continue to seek Jesus. Sometimes we say that. Well, you know, this province of suffering and pain, that many of the saints went through this. And you just say, oh, no. The greatest form of suffering is the rejection of the suffering. That's what it is. The greatest form of pain is the not readiness to accept and consent and say, this is your will. That is the greatest form of suffering. When somebody refuses to accept that this is who I am, when you refuse to accept, oh, my vulnerabilities, my personal, my idiosyncrasies, my weaknesses, to accept that and see that as a grace moment, to focus on grace that will elevate me, grace that will take me out of where I am. And I focus too much. You know, I'm just this kind, it's not my thing. I'm just not built for that. And you just I. Why not go to the thou? Come thou, Lord, expected Savior. Why not look at the Savior who saves us in every situation? look at him. When we focus on that, boy, oh boy, you cannot be the same. You cannot be the same. The flurry of grace. So it is in our hands. What do we focus on? The tossing wind or the one who walks on the sea? The one who walks on the sea gives us a complete sign of his authority over the sea and all that is in it. Authority. If you want to read a little bit, pray the Psalm 107 and look at it properly. Everything that has been said about Jesus, about the King, the one who has power, dominion over everything. When that one is by you, why should you be afraid? In perfect love, there is no fear. No fear. The wind may blow, the gale may fall. The world may seem to be upside down. But if we have Jesus in your company, all is well. And much more than that, all is beautiful. Much more than that, all is awesome. And I tell you what, once he walks into that boat, all becomes calm again. Let us rise and pray. Dearly beloved brothers and sisters,